So today I was preparing for another tutorial, and as part of that preparation I was making a random list of repeated values based on a sample data set, as you can see here on the left hand side. And I thought it might be interesting for you to see how this is done. You might find it useful if you're making your own dummy set of data in your own projects. So let's get stuck into it. So on my left hand side, I have this sample data set here. So what I want to do over here ultimately is to make a list of 30 randomized values based on this sample data set on the left here in cell B. Now, if you want to play along, and I encourage that you do, there's a link to this starter sheet in the description below. When you open up the starter sheet, you'll see a bunch of NAs here. These are feeding into these starting cell formulas here, and they'll display the formula that you generate, so you have a template if you need in future to reference for your own projects. So let's get into the formulas. So what I'm ultimately going to do is use the make array lambda function here, but we need to learn a few things in between. I want to select a number between any one of these, starting at 1 and going all the way through to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So our first function is going to be this rand between. And we need a random number between 1 and 8. So we can select from 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 of these items in the sample data here. From there, we also need the index. So now we can apply the index to select one of these. So if this is at position 8, which will be this last one, then we can use the index function to find that position. So how do I do that? Well, let's do it simply this way by referencing cell D3, and we'll type in the index function here. And our reference is going to be the range here. So I've selected that. And then my row is going to be this item here. And then we can just close the index with a tab. Because rand between is a dynamic function, it's going to change every time you make a modification. So you'll see this item here change every now and again as we go through the other formulas. All right, so let's combine these two together now. So let's just copy this index function here. So I'm going to click on cell E3, then go up to the formula bar, Control A to select all, Control C to copy, and then head down to E7, back to the formula bar, and Control V to paste. And we're going to replace D3 and put in our rand between. So rand between. And that's going to be from position 1 through to position 8. And we'll close our brackets now and hit tab. So now we've got a new position here between these two items. Cool. So we've done that for one cell, but we need to do that for 30 cells down our column. So here we can use the make array lambda function. So this can be a fairly intimidating function, but once you understand it, it does make a bit of sense. So let's go ahead and build that function out now. So with our make array, let's go make array. And make array takes a number of rows that we want to build and a number of columns that we want to build. And we want to build 30 rows of one column. And then we have our lambda function here. So inside that always requires a lambda function. And for this particular lambda function, it's going to require a row index and a column index. And we may not even use this in our formula, but it's still required for make array. So we aren't actually going to use it, but we'll put it in. So row, say underscore I, you can make it whatever you want. You can call R, little r for example, and col underscore I here. Make sure these values here, so these are variables here. Make sure they don't match any variables that you have that are normal formulas in Google Sheets. Otherwise it can get confused. Okay, so now that we have that, we can put in our formula. So what's our formula going to be? Well, we've already made it, right? It's going to be our index and our reference, which is going to be this B2 down to 9. And then we will have our rand between 1 and 8. Close the rand between. Close the index, close the lambda, close the make array, hit tab. There we go. Now we have our random list of values here. Now this is fairly helpful already, but we probably don't want things to be changing all the time in our sample example tutorials. Otherwise it's going to be confusing our viewers, right? So what we'll do is I'll just grab everything. I'll hit Control Shift and down arrow to get all the way to the bottom. Hit Control C to copy. And then I'll just put it over here for my example and hit Control Shift V to paste. And there we have it. That's now static. This one's still going to change if I make any formula changes or edit a cell. Let's say high here. You can see everything changes except for this column I now. Okay, so that's it for making a random list of data based on sample data using the make array, ran between, and index formulas. If you've enjoyed this tutorial, please hit that like button. And if you want to see more tutorials like this, subscribe. Until next time.